You probably found this video because you're a regular consumer of Pastor Darby's content, or you're researching who he is after seeing one of his many viral videos. Whatever the case may be, I need to give you a warning. What's up, y'all? If you are new here, my name is Jessica, and I am a lifestyle content creator. I center my content around the Black experience, whether it's spirituality, politics, pop culture. We're talking all things Black over here, okay? And today, I want to share how watching Pastor Darby's videos, for lack of a perfect description, broke my brain. I'm talking about destroyed all my brain cells, like every last one that I had. In some of my previous videos, I have hinted about going through a depression, being in a very, very dark place, and I'm putting it out there that Pastor Darby's videos kind of led me there. So if you are interested in him, or you are hearing about him and you haven't watched his videos yet, I just want to warn you that they could break your brain too. Let me set the scene. I discovered Pastor Darby. Um, I had just left my church, and I was in a place where I wanted to study the word for myself because I was looking for meaning. I was looking for answers, or maybe not answers, but insight into racism and how Black folk, white folk, yellow folk, red folk, how we all worship, in the Christian space, how we're all worshiping God the Father, but racism still exists. It just didn't make sense to me at the time. My vision is clearer now, but back then I really was searching for that meaning, trying to uh, figure out what was really going on in the world, right? And so I left my church because I wasn't gonna get that there. And I realized that it was time to figure it out on my own, because a lot of times, well, all the time, church is someone else's interpretation. You're not freely thinking about the text. So I realized that in order for me to get down to the bottom of racism for me personally, I had to read the word on my own. It led me to read books, and I'm not even talking about like super out there books like on religion and stuff like that, but just your basic apologetics type stuff. So I started with apologetics is recommended by the pastor who was over the church while I was there. And it led me to Pastor Darby. And I really wish that I would have been prepared for what I was going to hear watching his sermons. Because I'm somebody that's been in church my entire life. I grew up in church. As I said in previous videos, I consider myself to be a church girl. I was a church girl. I love church. I loved that. But I was traumatized by it at the same time. It's so toxic. It's such a toxic relationship. But yeah, I was that. So when I was watching a sermon, I'm not thinking that I'm going to hear something that's going to change everything and make me question life. But that's exactly what happened. So I just feel like he needs a warning label. One of his sermons came across my feed, and the rest is literally history. I started to watch them daily. I studied the topics, and honestly, like after experiencing his way of teaching and the way that, or not way, but the topics that he discussed, you can't go back to a regular church after that. So it has ruined my ability to go to church, because if you're not talking about these things, I just don't have the time to sit in here. He made me see that a lot of pastors are really just glorified motivational speakers because there's no meat, like there's no meat. And it just really reinforced that I had to read the Bible for myself. And so I think that even though he should come with a warning label, there are definitely wonderful things that happened in my life as a result of that. And that he was really part of my journey. This was like 2021, June-ish, July-ish, 2021. And I'm watching the sermons, like, taking notes. I still have my notebook with those notes. And I'm like, okay, let me go, look at these. Let me go look at the date. And I'm thinking the entire time that these were like up to date sermons. This man had preached this stuff 9, 10, 11 years ago. So that immediately, like, wait a minute, these sermons a decade old and they're this relevant. And not only that, the fact that he had passed away. So I didn't realize that he was deceased. I thought he was still living. So those two things really, like, had me like, what's up with this man? And then I think what really did it was his sermon about the rapture and CERN and New World Order, things that I was familiar with. Not CERN, I wasn't familiar with it at all. But like the New World Order stuff, you hear that, but I had never heard a pastor talk about that kind of stuff. I'd never heard someone go Bible like right there. And it was so funny because he also talked about the apocryphal books, which was something I had recently discovered, that there were books missing or from the Bible that were not included. And I had discovered that like along my research, when you got into the slave Bible and all that kind of thing. But the fact that he was also talking about those books really kind of like got my attention. But yeah, so the main topics or his main teachings that kind of broke my brain was that there would be no rapture. Could you imagine like being traumatized my entire life about the rapture, wondering when it's going to happen, what is it going to be like, am I going to get caught up in all these things, and then for someone to say that's a lie, that's a myth, and let me prove it to you. That is nowhere in the Bible. And if this is what people say means the rapture, but it could also be taken as this. So like hearing all of that just shook me to my core. And the craziest part about it is these are things that you can just easily go look up yourself. And it showed me like you can have the best intentions when it comes to your spirituality, but if you are not truly reading the word and going beyond the pages, you're missing it. And I mean that as humbly as I can say it. Like, I'm not coming from a place of judgment. I'm just being real. Like, if you just read the book of Genesis, there is so much to go back and study. And I just had never been in a position at church where we looked at the Bible as a history book. But it should be common sense that it's a history book, right? If this is real, it should be able to match up or line up. And so that those kind of things, I guess it shook me because I realized that I had been really kind of performing, that I hadn't been doing the work that I should have been doing and reading and looking up these words that I didn't know, and trying to come to a conclusion on my own, because I was not gonna you're not ever gonna get that in a traditional black church. Like, I have been to a lot of them. You're not getting it there. So trust me when I say this man was on something different. And then I distinctly remember watching along and studying with his sermon that all religions come from Babylon. I've often wondered how, or like, what happens to someone who grows up in a culture where they are worshiping a God other than Christ and, the Most High. There was something that was always confusing to me. Like, would they still get into heaven? How does God feel about that? And just even that, like the thought of a Christian saying, oh, they're free to practice this religion, or maybe God would have, like, no, there's one God. And so if there are other religions, they have to be false. You know what I'm saying? And then just being able to make the connection and looking at the symbols, because one thing that Pastor Darby emphasized is that when you cannot communicate with language, think about the Tower of Babel, and God mixed up all the languages. These people still had to find a way to communicate, so they would use symbols. And if you look at all these different religions, the symbols are the same. So they have to be talking to or referring to the same thing. And that was just a mind blowing concept for me, again, because I never dug that deep. I had never dug that deep into the Bible and into the people of the other lands and all of that stuff. I was lazy. Well, I ain't gonna say like I wasn't trying to be lazy, but it really was. Like if you truly believe this and you want to live righteously and you want to follow um, the lifestyle or whatever you have to follow to be part of this group or to say that you are a believer, then you should kind of do your due diligence. And I just wasn't. Like, I'm not ashamed to admit that I wasn't. Hearing his take on modern Christianity and what people, what a lot of folks think they're worshiping and what they're really doing, there was all those things were very eye opening for me. And now having gone through that, like it was already a shock enough to be experiencing a pandemic in my lifetime and to be afraid day to day, like seeing vaccine mandates, seeing people lose their jobs, seeing countries be locked down, seeing the division happening among the people, just watching the play by the government. And then there being a pastor who 8 years prior made sermons saying this is how they're going to try to usher in the new world order. This is what is going to happen. That kind of stuff, that's not a conspiracy. That to me was prophetic. Like name another pastor who gave a full sermon in 2015 that is applicable in 2024. That's what it was like discovering his content. I look at it as God leading me to him, even though it had some negative effects. It was like lifting blinders and having to face the reality of life that there are evil people. There are people who say that they are good. The government is evil. Period. They're not here to help us. They're not. And the actions from that point now show that even with the illegal immigration and how it's negatively impacting Americans, you could look at that as just a policy, but it's really spiritual. And he talked about that kind of that too. Like there was a sermon where he was saying or he referenced like Hurricane Katrina and the military people, they had difficulty like using force with those folks who were stealing their homes and all of that, and how because they had their guns, and he was saying like that's why they want to take the guns away, and they're going to have people that are not from this country to force you to do what they want you to do, and those people will not care about you. They can't identify with you. They can't connect with you because they're not going to be from here. And so now we have this influx of illegal immigrants, and it kind of does feel like a military operation, because why would you let so many people in, and why would they get perks and benefits that Americans don't even get when they don't have any skin in the game? They haven't done anything to earn it. These are our tax dollars. So those kind of things, like I'm always thinking of Pastor Darby in the back of my mind, like I hope this man was not really who he kind of seemed like he was. Having said that, what do I think about his teachings? I think that he fulfilled his earthly mission, because I know for me, his teachings led me to develop a new hunger for the word, and I stopped being lazy. I no longer accept what someone says about the Bible. Like I know it myself now. Like it's not a lot people can kind of get over with me on. And I do think that there are certain standards, but at the end of the day, none of us know for real, because we're still here on this earth. So we don't know for real. We can trust and we can have faith and we can believe, but we don't really know. So has given me that gives me that cushion between losing my mind and being able to function every day, knowing that nobody really knows. That's kind of that pocket that I stay in. But I don't let other people tell me what the Bible means. I go and look it up for myself. And it's so funny because a cult actually tried to recruit me and my husband, and it was because I had done all that before through Pastor Darby, all of the research and looking at different things and history and all that. I obviously am not a member of a cult, so I was able to like deal with those people. But what I'm saying is, I feel like he fulfilled a mission because he changed my life, and as a result, I grew closer to Christ, and that is the goal. Um, I'm not a blind follower of anything anymore. Not even Pastor Darby. So like some of his teachings obviously have shown themselves or shown it to be true or to be at least headed in the right direction. But I don't think that he knew everything. So that's just something to be mindful of. I think he was spot on about the LGBT agenda, Hollywood's satanic worship, pedophilia, all those things, because we kind of see that shaping up now. I do think he was right about all of the religions coming from false gods. I believe that 100%. You know, however somebody may feel about that, I do, because again, I have looked into these, and it's not hard to connect the dots once you look at all of the research and the information that's out there. But I do think he was prophetic in some ways. Again, maybe not them all because nobody really knows, but you cannot deny that a lot of his teachings have kind of, that some of those things have come into motion, specifically about CERN. They recently restarted the collider. So yeah, y'all have to again use caution. But if you're interested in that kind of stuff and seeing exactly what I'm talking about, do go watch that. The CERN one is crazy. So I just wanted to make this really quick video and just share with y'all my experience and warn you, if you are like me and you come from a traditional black church, this man is nothing like what you have ever heard before. And it might just send you to your knees because you have built your life on the rapture. You've built your life on this symbolism and these figures, and you find out the world is just not what it seems. And I think we're seeing that more and more every day, especially with Diddy and these celebrities and politicians and all these stories that are coming out. I think God is telling us to choose a side, choose a side. And I'm thankful I did get to find. I'm thankful that I found Pastor Darby, that I was led to him, because again, it did give me a hunger for the word. And I believe the Bible is the greatest book of all time. Like, it's not even a question. So I'm thankful for that. But I would tell you to exercise caution if you plan to partake in his content. But shout out to his wife for keeping his channel, keeping their ministry going. Give to their ministry, support them so that they can continue to do the work. And yeah, let me know what y'all think. Have you ever watched any of his content? What do you think about him? Yeah, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.